The talk is not going to be very entertaining or funny because the topic is not. But I do think that we need to talk about bullying, which has become a serious issue in our schools and in our classrooms. But before we start, I would like to ask you to close your eyes. First, think how you are feeling now after the first session. I hope that you are doing well. You can also write in chat. But I would like you to think about the person you can talk to when you really feel frustrated, worried, when you have any problem to deal with, something really serious. Think about this person. Is it your relative? Is it a friend? Who can you talk to whenever you need to? Yeah, and then I would love you to remember or to think how important it is for you to have such a person, if you do have one, okay? Someone you can really rely on, and you can share any thoughts, any feelings. It's really a treasure to have somebody like that, and keep it in your mind. We'll come back to it in a bit later. Okay, so bullying. Um, Absolutely. We don't have enough time to cover all details and all aspects of bullying because it's really a big issue. But I hope that we'll make a little bit of noise about bullying and just talk about it. Research shows that experiencing bullying may have really a significant impact on child life well into adulthood. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced bullying. I hope no, but if you have, probably you know how painful, how hurtful it can be. And I think that too often we are silent when we see bullying. We are too silent about hurt bullying can cause, and we are too silent hearing bullying dismissed as just banter. And you know that bullying can happen anywhere. It can happen in the classroom, in schools, in the playground, at home, at workplace. Sometimes it's called mobbing. So actually we can observe it everywhere. And I also think that being both a victim or a perpetrator of bullying behavior always have a big impact on our health, physical and mental. So during this presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about the definition of bullying, types of bullying, causes, effects, prevention, and then give you some practical tips for your classrooms. So what is bullying? There are many definitions, but the one which I think all agreed on says that this is the repetitive, intentional hurting of one person or group by another person or group where the relationship involves an imbalance of power. So of course, bullying can be physical, can be verbal, psychological. As you know, it can happen face-to-face or online. So when you look at this definition, there are 4 key elements to this definition. It's hurtful, there is repetition, there is a power imbalance, and it's intentional. Why am I underlining it? Because it's really important to understand the difference between relational conflict and bullying. You know, conflict, we all are facing conflicts in our life. And also conflict is an important part of growing up. And pupils, students need to learn how to manage, how to deal with conflicts. But bullying is not simply a conflict. It's not a falling out. It's not having an argument. So just to ensure that we are able to prevent bullying, that we can act quickly, that we can avoid misidentifying bullying, is really vital for all of us, for schools, for teachers, parents, and also our students to understand and to share the definition of bullying. Because then we know how to react. If we don't share this definition, then everybody will have a different one. Bullying is the issue which has been researched since the 70s. Actually, in 70s, we have lots of research on bullying, but it hasn't been that interdisciplinary as it is now. Nowadays, because the scale of bullying really went up, it has increased enormously. And I would like you to look at some statistics. The UNESCO Institute of Statistics says that 1/3 of the globe's youth is bullied. And then you can look at some more facts. It has really become something like an epidemic. 90% of students in grades 4A report having been harassed or bullied. 28 grades 6, 12, 20 of students in grades 9, 12. In different countries, different cultures, it looks a little bit differently, but actually everywhere there is a problem. Here you have some statistics from US where the problem is really, really alarming. So each month, 282,000 students are physically assaulted in some way in secondary schools, and the number is growing. I was in the United States just 2 weeks ago working there, and when I also talk about bullying, even though it was a different conference, so it's really alarming. And also statistics suggest that revenge is the #1 motivation in school shootings in US. There are more and more problems in schools, and also lots of kids just skip school for fear of being bullied. That's one thing. The other aspect is witness bullying. The statistics say that almost more than 70% of young people say that they have seen bullying in their schools. They bullied, sometimes they witnessed the bullying 2 or 3 times in the last month. So, it doesn't look really promising. Another aspect is cyberbullying. You know that now when we have access to all these digital tools, to Facebook, social media, and other tools, cyberbullying has become also an issue. Actually, it's nothing different than bullying face-to-face, but all these tools just give us a different possibility and more opportunities for students to use them. So it has become also the problem. So when we look at different types of bullying, usually we say that we have direct and indirect bullying. By looking more specifically, you can see that there is a physical bullying, and there are lots of different, activities or forms of physical bullying, like pushing, poking, kicking, hitting, biting, pinching, and more. Kids or teenagers are really creative in that sense too. Verbal, like name calling, sarcasm, spreading rumors, threats, teasing, belittling, and many other. Emotional, which sometimes is called relational, is like isolating others, tormenting, hiding books, threatening gesture, ridiculing, intimidating, excluding, a horrible thing, manipulation, and coercion. And then you have sexual one, unwanted physical contact, inappropriate touching, abusive comments, some homophobic abuse or exposure to some inappropriate films, and many others. And as I said, cyberbullying rarely occurs in isolation because it's just the tool. But from the research, we know that most people who are being bullied face-to-face, they are also bullied in the internet, they are bullied online. So it's not a big difference, really. The same people bully in the internet and the same people bully in the classroom. But also when we talk about indirect bullying, it's like spreading nasty stories about someone, excluding someone from social groups, unwanted communication through texting, internet chat rooms, and emails. So the bully doesn't really do it in front of the person being bullied, but does it indirectly. And we can think, or we can wonder, who might be put at risk of being bullied? So what are the risk factors? You can think about it and write in chat if you want. So the main thing is that kids or pupils, or just people, not only kids, are being bullied. They are usually people who are perceived as different from their peers. So the difference can be different. It can be a person who is seen as being overweight or underweight, somebody who is wearing glasses or different clothes, or being new to a school, or being unable to afford what kids consider cool, or a student, a pupil who is perceived as somebody very weak, unable to defend themselves, or just depressed, anxious, having low self-esteem, or just less popular than others and having few friends, or not getting very well with others, or having some educational needs, or just somebody who behaves differently or inappropriately with others, somebody who is called a nuisance. But the list can be much, much longer. But these students, these kids can be at risk, and they are probably the first to be bullied. When you think about the person who becomes a bully, what might lead a student to bully others? Because it's also interesting. And as I said, actually the tragedy is on both sides, with the bully and the person being bullied. So usually, why young people, why kids bully others? Bullying can be a reaction to emotional distress or unmet mental health issues. Yeah, sometimes kids who are seeking some attention or some support become bullies. Sometimes they are just the victims of bullying too. Yeah, and they try to make it up in a way. And some bullies say that there was so much going on in my life that sometimes the only way to feel strong or powerful was to bully other people. It's one of kids said it to me. So there is need to be recognition and support for all kids, those who are being bullied, but also for those who become bullies. Because there's always a reason why kids or why people do that, and it's important to understand that this disruptive behavior can be really expression of some difficulties or distress. So when you are a teacher, when you are in school, how can you recognize young people who are experiencing some mental health problems, for instance, in context of bullying? What's happening? Usually they have poorer academic performance. You know, you had a really good student and suddenly something is going wrong and his performance is completely different. You can see also lack of engagement. They become less engaged. Very often they are absent from schools. So there's a persistent absence from school. There's increased isolation. You can see that this student during breaks is not, with a group of other pupils, but probably he was maybe sometime, but now he's standing alone in a corner of the classroom or in corridor. You can see a change in weight, either an increase or decrease. You can see the lack of motivation and interest. Yeah, some changes in behavior, like becoming aggressive or unruly or anxious or distressed or just withdrawn. Sometimes maybe more parents than teachers can see some unexplained bruises, cuts or marks, but also teachers can notice them when you look really carefully. Some signs of self-harming or some symptoms of emotional difficulties such as withdrawn or low mood. What is really important for us as teachers is to understand that the effects of bullying can be like short-term and long-term consequences. One of them is the impact bullying may have on ability to engage with school learning and their relationship. And what is really worrying is the fact that some people, some young people, some students can become, in a way, adept at containing their emotions and pretending that everything is okay, And these effects of this emotional containment can cause significant disruption to school life. Because what's happening? They usually struggle to engage. They can't concentrate in lessons. They have real difficulties controlling their behavior, and very often they become just angry or disruptive. So what's happening next? Their behavior can lead to this young person being labeled as the disruptive one or a troublemaker. And they become really the troublemakers, not the victims of the bullying. But they often, because they adapt to the situation, so they somehow set up new regulational mechanisms. And when you feel really bad, when you have lots of difficult emotions, what do? Usually you go into this dissociation state, or we call it in psychology like emotional hibernation. You feel nothing, you don't want to feel anything. So you don't feel either the positive emotion nor or the positive ones. But then and it's very difficult for the teacher really to notice what's happening because the student is like emotionally numb. And it can last for ages, and it can also be the pattern which is later transferred into adult life. So course, what's the impact of bullying on mental health? Bullying has a significant effect on children's and young people's mental health. Yeah, their identity, their emotional well-being, and so students who are bullied may have not only poor academic performance, but they may struggle with their mental health. So the first emotional effects include depression. Lots of kids suffer from depression, anxiety. They struggle with low self-esteem, with insomnia, with suicidal thoughts, and some actions. But also the recent research findings showed a consistent link between the experience of being bullied and development of psychotic symptoms, like psychotic disorders, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality, or delusional disorder. So really serious things, and you know, if we don't react, it can even go worse. It's more complicated when it comes to talk about mental health and bullying, because the links between school bullying and mental health, of course, have been researched for years, but they shows that many of the symptoms associated with mental health, such as behavioral, emotional difficulties, they act as significant risk factors for bullying involvement, but in both ways. Look, so young people who have mental health, on one hand, they can become the people who are being bullied. Yeah. But on the other hand, because they have some problems, they also get involved in bullying others. They are quite easy to be engaged in bullying others. And this association between bullying and mental health is like, it represents actually a vicious circle. Yeah? Because on one hand, you can become a victim, on the other hand, a bully. What is also, I haven't said that yet, but it's also important to use the language. When we talk about bullying, I said victim, but actually in psychology and nowadays also in all anti-bullying programs, we try not to use this language, bully, a victim of bullying, but a person being bullied, because saying a victim, we somehow label the person. So it's better to detach the behavior from the person, because then or a bully, or rather saying, instead of saying a bully, to tell the person who bullies. Okay, so how can we prevent bullying? There are many, of course, ideas, lots of things to be done, but the first thing which we should do is just to understand what bullying is and what isn't. And so we have already talked about it a little bit, but we have to highlight the critical change of language, as I said, removing this universal signifiers. In psychotherapy, cognitive behavior therapy, we use something which is called universal signifiers. So we can replace them with statements that remove the behavior from the child, as I said before. Yeah, so just try to think about the language we use. So the label bully is not the helpful one. Yes, it implies that it is what they are, and it's better to think that bullying is a behavior choice. So that's first thing. Then promoting culture of respect and kindness. It's very important to look at the culture of the school. If we have any contract school has for all students. And for me, it's also important to think if kids have the sense of belonging in our schools, in our classrooms, because it's very important to feel that you belong. Lorraine has talked a lot about emotions and also relationships, so that's very important. Then celebrating that we are all different. Yes, allow children to talk about things which are different. Sometimes we have lots of refugees in our schools. Now I'm located in Poland, and we have lots of Ukrainian kids, and so allow them to express who they are, what their culture is, what customs they celebrate, and things like that. Just allow it and even promote. And then challenging derogatory and discriminatory language. Yes, it's very important to educate pupils why certain words shouldn't be used. Yes, so ask them what words they use and how they might impact the other people in the classroom. Just make them more aware of that. And when bullying happens in our schools, it's also important that there should be a proper response. So first, think about the safety of all kids involved. Then try to think how to prevent the bullying from reoccurring. And then think about the school culture. Reflect on that, what we can do differently, how we can stop it. So there are different strategies. Some strategies we call classroom strategies. So what you can do in the classroom, because as we said, bullying can happen everywhere, not only in the classroom, but also in corridor, in the playground, and in some clubs. So what can you do in the classroom? Then outside classroom strategies. Maybe if the bullying is happening too often, maybe there should be a higher supervision in corridors or toilets or playground. The school has to decide. And peer support, absolutely one of the most important things to stop bullying. And because bullying actually tends to be a group behavior. Research undertaken in Finland by Christina Salmivali gave us actually a great understanding of the roles involved in bullying, because it showed that the traditional view of bullying, where there was a victim and bully, actually is much more complicated because we have more roles. So there are few roles which you can observe, you can see when you talk about bullying. There is, of course, the target, somebody who's being bullied. There is a ringleader, the person who leads the bullying, the person who starts it. Then you have the reinforcer, the person who doesn't lead but loves, does lots of horrible things towards the target, but is not the leader. Assistant is, of course, actively involved in bullying, but again, doesn't lead. Defender who is trying to help the target, the victim, and the outsider person who is not involved or tries to pretend that it's not involved. And when we look at the percentage, because when you look about the roles, it can give you some ideas what to do in the classroom where we have to act more intensively, because actually the highest percentage is outsider, bystander. So what can we do to make people more involved, to be defenders rather than outsiders? And actually we can work on each role differently. When you have like a ringleader, maybe you can prepare a lesson on empathy and kindness and just involve them in some activities. So it's important to remember that bullying is a group behavior, and it happens usually in a group. When you work in schools, in classroom, it's always quite vital to think about two main research-based methods of dealing with bullying. One is no blame approach. So as I said before, no blame. We're not trying to blame the person who is a bully, but just to understand and talk why the person or why the student is doing that, and then consider it as a shared concern, because bullying is a problem which should be taken seriously by teachers, school directors, head teachers, parents, everyone, actually, the whole community. And some practical tips for the classroom. I know that there has been lots of fear about bullying, but I can't really cover all these elements and all these aspects here. I just wanted to give you some ideas what you can do in the classroom. In UK, Ireland, Wales, there's always like anti-bullying week, which is organized each November from 13 to 17 November. In different countries, probably there is a different time, but you can do it anytime, but organize something like that, where you know what to do. There are lots of different ideas. First, maybe you can ask students to prepare their definitions of bullying. They can prepare, depending on what level they are, they can just prepare different definitions. They can draw if they don't have vocabulary to describe it. What is bullying, what is cyberbullying, all these things, yeah? Another thing, you can ask students to prepare to make some posters on or something like anti-bullying wall. It can be even a competition in the classroom that you can divide them into groups and ask them to prepare a poster, to make the poster, or prepare the wall in the class where they stick some papers with some anti-bullying slogans or sentences. It usually works very well with students because you have a nice competition, but also they can learn a lot. So different posters, they can draw, they can write, and depending on the level, you can somehow lead them in this activity. You can also organize like creative writing projects. So they can either write a poem against bullying, they can write a story or a script. You can also, use the poems which are actually available in the internet, or you can use some books on bullying to discuss it with students, or you can prepare a script which they later on perform. There are many possibilities what to do, but it's just your ideas. You can prepare a short film, an anti-bullying film, or about the culture, anti-bullying culture in your school, different things. And also, I think what is important is just preparing lessons on kindness and gratefulness, empathy. Sometimes it's good to provoke students to think what kindness means, how they can express kindness, what does it mean for them to be kind. Or to be grateful. Lorraine also said that we can celebrate gratefulness, and I think if we do it like step by step, and it has become a culture of our school, then the bullying will not happen that often, because the relationships between students can be completely different. They can celebrate kindness, different things. They can write a letter to a bully. It's a more linguistic exercise. When you practice writing, they can imagine that somebody is a bully, and then they can write a letter to bully. They can also write a letter to a person who is being bullied. But it depends. I think if you write a letter to bully, it's also good to make them reflect, if they themselves are bullies. And drama, I'm a drama person, as Will said at the very beginning. Actually, I love drama because it allows us to express our emotions. So I think there are lots of drama techniques you can use in the classroom. Some exercises just to give you a flavor. You can write some words on the board, like, words connected with bullying, like hurties, call names, any you want. It depends again on the level you teach. And then I usually ask students to walk around the room, and I call out the word or phrase, and then I ask them to make a still image that portrays this word. Then they walk again, and until I call next word or phrase. And what's important, because these activities engage them with keywords and themes in a very embodied way, so they can feel it. Then you can do something like visualization. So I ask students to close their eyes. I read the poem. I usually use the poem by Matthew Sweeney, Only the Wall. I'm not going to read it because I think I don't have enough time, but the poem, I ask them to close their eyes, read the poem, and then we do the exercise connected with the poem, which is called talking objects, because I ask students to stand in a long line facing forwards, and they are the wall. I tell them that they are a wall, and everyone should think of one new sentence that the wall can speak out loud about the scenes it has witnessed, because the whole poem is about the wall which has witnessed bullying. And then I walk slowly along the line, and each person speaks this sentence aloud. And you can start with different sentences if you want to practice some verbs or some tenses, whatever. But again, if you can then reply as a teacher, passing the wall as a bully or the new boy. There are different possibilities. Of course, there are many more techniques, drama techniques and strategies you can use. But I think that the drama is really a very powerful tool, very powerful medium, because you can teach empathy through drama. We use lots of role-playing, improvisation, and very often, if I ask the bully to be a victim, it gives them a different perspective, so they can learn how it is to be bullied, even if we create a metaphor, if we create a fictional world. So lots of different ideas in drama. And I think just teaching students empathy, kindness, gratefulness, some social and emotional skills, this is actually the best prevention against bullying. And also the ability to express emotions, what Lorraine has talked about, because very often students, those who are bullies, they can't express their anger. If you don't express your anger, it's still there, you know. Even we adults, when you don't express your anger, it's somewhere, and then you project it probably on the person who is a bit weaker. So expression, acceptance of all emotions, and providing a space where students can feel safe expressing their feelings. And also when you notice something, it's important to make the child feel safe and give them the chance to talk to you. Of course, parents play a vital role, but you never know if the parents actually talk to children. So, and we as teachers play a really important, vital role in educating the kids. So if kids can, or students can trust you, they know that they can come and talk to you, then definitely they can express their fears, their worries, and probably it can prevent them from bullying, or if they are being bullied, it can prevent them from having some serious mental issues. So it was very quick, sorry for that, but I hope that we have touched a little bit of this actually difficult issue, and I hope you will introduce some of these ideas into your classroom and think that about kids who are being bullied and things, and about kids who are bullies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Thank you. Really, really just enlightening, and from the depths of you, by the looks of things. You've spent a long time on that presentation. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've had some questions. One I'd like to just put up from the chat box, actually. Someone's got quite a unique situation by the looks of things to me, but maybe it's not. I don't know. Sana, it's just, I'll read it to you, Alicia. Just bear with me a sec. It's quite a long message, but it's quite interesting. Sana says, I have this one student that impacts the dynamics of the whole class. He bullies everyone, disrespects the teachers, and even hits them when he's not pleased to be called out on his actions. He lies, and when no one believes him, he snaps and starts bullying the person sitting next to him. He doesn't know what a chair is. He never sits down and runs out of the classroom after he finishes his tasks, which causes problems for the other teachers. I feel at a loss. I tried everything with him. When some students react and push him away from them, he starts crying about it. I think basically it's sort of, if you have an extreme case like that, it sounds like a pretty extreme case. At what point does the teacher need to sort of accept that they're not really equipped to deal with that situation, and they you know, what happens then?
No, I think it, of course, it can happen that you have really an extreme case, because some kids suffer from some mental illnesses, or, you know, they some psychotic or psychopathological diseases. And if you have done everything, you think that you've done everything you could, you talked to the child and you supported the kid, you talked to the parents, probably the only way is just to accept it and talk to the therapist or to the consultant, because it can be a serious thing. And sometimes we do have kids or people or teenagers who are psychopaths. Even the kid can be psychopathic, and then it means that his brain is damaged on a neurological level, and you can't do much. You know, it's like psychopaths, they just find pleasure in hurting others. So then if something like that happens, you can't do much. Probably the person should see the psychiatrist and maybe take some drugs or things like that. So it can be extreme, but usually first we try to talk to the child, we try to talk to the parents, see how the kid behaves also at home, try to see if it's just the school, the classroom, or maybe his behavior or her behavior is similar outside the school. So it's important. But if you tried everything and it's really extreme, then you need to ask for a psychiatrist or psychotherapist.
Okay. Let me just go. So we have got other questions. I'm just trying to find the beginning. If a child bullies students, and in spite of multiple corrective measures taken, if they continue to do it, what do you do? What can you do?
Yeah, it's very similar what I have just said. If actually the child still continues to bully, if you talk to the child, what's the reason that he does it? Or I usually think that it's important to look very closely and carefully at their family situation, because kids, sometimes we think that the kid has a really wonderful family because, intellectual or financially very high, but it doesn't mean that nothing happens in the family. So if the kid, because I have nowadays a similar case that the child is really very violent, very aggressive towards other kids, but it has just turned out that his father is really very aggressive towards mother, and the kids actually, does the same in school. And then if you don't know it, you think that this is the fault of the kid, but it's not. So again, you have to talk and investigate the situation in the family. Sometimes you have to talk to the social services or things like that. Or as I said before, maybe you have to contact the psychiatrist or psychotherapist.
Thanks, Alicja. Sometimes one family member, a sibling, bullies another. What do you do? This is completely different. This is not the classroom. What do you do if there's one sibling that's sort of constantly bullying the other?
I mean, in the family, not in the classroom. Yeah, I guess.
In the family, but I think that's what it's going for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
the family,
it's very difficult to deal with this. It's a problem kind of discussed with parents. They just don't want to share it. I think maybe they do meet at school. Between the siblings.
So they are both. So they are both at school. So again,
quite a specific scenario, but
okay, yes. So it's very difficult. Yeah, but again, the parents. This is something you have to take into consideration. We should talk to parents, but sometimes the problem or the relationship between the siblings is so aggressive because, for instance, the parents treat differently each child. Usually, when you have a younger child, a newborn child, the older one somehow feels rejected or less important, and then these kids become quite aggressive and then bully others. So it happened many times that the child was really great, and suddenly, a new child appeared in the family, and he has changed completely into the bully. So again, I think it's important to talk to parents. Without that, it's difficult. If not, if parents are completely reluctant to cooperate, then you can call both siblings. And I do think if we engage kids in some activities where they can express their emotions, why they bully, why they have so high level of anger, then you can understand what's happening. Because it's not easy, guys. Sometimes they pretend that everything is okay, but it's not. And even in therapy, sometimes it takes really weeks or months before the child opens up and you know what's happening really. So it's not an easy work, but yeah, again, we can talk and just try to see what's the real reason behind that behavior.
Thank you so much, Alicja. I think we're going to need to stop it there. We've got to stop at some point. There are lots more questions, but we haven't got time. Okay. Thank you so much for putting that together. It's a wonderful talk.
Thank you very much.
Very, very on teacher's level. So thank you so much.